What if I told you that sometimes our greatest acts of heroism happen when we're completely unconscious? That in our darkest moments, when we're fighting for our very lives, we might simultaneously be saving someone else's? Welcome to Second Chance Stories. I'm your narrator, and today I want to share with you the remarkable tale of Sarah Mitchell, a 52-year-old elementary school teacher from Portland, Oregon, whose near-death experience became someone else's miracle. This isn't just a story about survival, it's about how our souls might be more connected than we ever imagined, and how sometimes the light we're walking toward might be guiding someone else home. Sarah's story begins on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday morning in March 2019. But by sunset that day, two families' lives would be forever changed in ways that defy medical explanation. Sarah Mitchell had been teaching third grade for nearly 3 decades. At 52, she was the kind of teacher children remembered fondly for the rest of their lives. Patient, kind, with a smile that could turn around even the most difficult day. That Tuesday started like any other. Sarah arrived at Riverside Elementary at 7:15 a.m., coffee in hand, lesson plans tucked under her arm. She greeted the janitor, Mr. Peterson, with her usual cheerful "Good morning," and settled into her classroom to prepare for the day ahead. Her students would later remember that Mrs. Mitchell seemed particularly happy that morning. She had just received news that her oldest daughter, Emma, was expecting her first child, Sarah's first grandchild. She couldn't stop talking about it during lunch with her colleague, Janet. "I can't believe I'm going to be a grandmother," Sarah confided, her eyes sparkling. "Emma says the baby's due in October. I'm already thinking about all the books I'll read to this little one." Janet smiled, watching her friend's joy. "You're going to be an amazing grandmother, Sarah. You have such a gift with children." Neither of them could have imagined that just a few miles away, another woman was spending what might be her last day with her own child. Dr. Maria Santos had been reviewing the same chart for the 3rd time that morning at Portland General Hospital. 8-year-old Tommy Rodriguez had been fighting leukemia for 2 years. Despite every treatment, every prayer, every miracle his family had hoped for, Tommy was losing his battle. His mother, Carmen, sat beside his hospital bed, reading him stories from the same worn book of fairy tales they'd been reading together since he was 3. Tommy's energy was fading, but he still smiled when his mother did the voices for different characters. "Mama," Tommy whispered during a quiet moment, "will you still read to me in heaven?" Carmen's heart shattered, but she kept her voice steady. "Oh, mi amor, you're going to get better, but yes, I'll read to you wherever we are, always." What neither Carmen nor Dr. Santos knew was that Tommy's second chance was already in motion, travelling down Highway 26 in the form of a silver Honda Civic, driven by a woman who collected children's books and dreamed of reading to her future grandchild. At 3:47 p.m, Sarah Mitchell's life changed in an instant. She was driving home from school, thinking about stopping by the bookstore to pick up some picture books for the baby, still months away, but she couldn't help herself. The radio was playing an old song that reminded her of her own childhood, and she found herself humming along. The intersection of Highway 26 and Miller Road was known locally as a dangerous crossing. Despite multiple traffic lights and warning signs, accidents happened there with troubling regularity. Sarah approached the intersection as her light turned green. She never saw the delivery truck running the red light at 60 miles per hour. The impact was catastrophic. Sarah's Honda was crushed against the metal barrier, and she was unconscious before the sound of twisting metal had even finished echoing across the highway. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes, a response time that would later be called miraculous. But Sarah's injuries were severe. Traumatic brain injury, internal bleeding, multiple fractures. As they worked frantically to stabilize her, her vital signs were dangerously unstable. "We need to move now," shouted paramedic James Rodriguez. Yes, Tommy's uncle, though none of them knew the connection yet. "She's not going to make it if we don't get her to Portland General immediately." As the ambulance raced through Portland traffic, Sarah Mitchell began the most extraordinary journey of her life. Sarah would later describe what happened next with a clarity that surprised everyone, including herself. She found herself standing in what seemed like a hospital room, but not quite. The walls were soft and luminous, filled with a warm golden light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I wasn't afraid," she would tell people later. "That's what surprised me most. I should have been terrified, but instead I felt peaceful, like I was exactly where I needed to be." She began walking toward what appeared to be a long corridor filled with that same gentle light. But as she walked, she became aware of voices, not speaking to her, but around her, through her. "Please," she heard a woman's voice, thick with tears. "Please don't take him. He's all I have left. Please." Sarah stopped walking. The voice was so full of pain that it seemed to physically pull at her heart. "Who's there?" she called out, though her voice seemed to echo strangely in the luminous space. Instead of an answer, she began to see images, not quite like watching a movie, but like experiencing memories that weren't her own. She saw a young boy, pale and thin, lying in a hospital bed. She saw a woman who looked exhausted from grief and sleepless nights, reading stories aloud from a worn book. The 3 little bears the woman was reading, but her voice kept breaking. Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to help, though she couldn't understand how or why. What Sarah experienced next would later be documented by Dr. Patricia Williams, a neurologist who specialized in consciousness studies. Though Dr. Williams maintained professional skepticism about near-death experiences, Sarah's case would challenge everything she thought she knew about the boundaries of human awareness. In what felt like a dream, but seemed more real than any dream she'd ever had, Sarah found herself in Tommy Rodriguez's hospital room. She could see Carmen clearly now, a woman about her own age with the same exhausted love in her eyes that Sarah recognized from her own moments of maternal worry. Tommy lay still, his breathing shallow, his small hand clutched in his mother's. "I don't know how to let go," Carmen was whispering. "I don't know how to say goodbye." Sarah felt an intense presence beside her, though she couldn't see anyone. A voice, gentle, neither male nor female, seemed to speak directly into her consciousness. "She needs to know it's okay to hope. The child needs to know he's not alone." "I don't understand," Sarah said, or thought she said. "Love doesn't end with the body. Sometimes it grows stronger. Sometimes it finds new ways to flow." Sarah watched as Carmen picked up the old book of fairy tales again. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it open. "Once upon a time," Carmen began, but her voice broke immediately. Without fully understanding what she was doing, Sarah stepped forward. Though she couldn't physically touch the book, somehow she began to continue the story. "Once upon a time, in a kingdom where love was the strongest magic of all, there lived a brave little prince who brought joy to everyone he met." What happened next defied everything that should have been medically possible. Tommy's eyes fluttered open, his breathing became stronger, and somehow Carmen felt a presence in the room, warm, loving, supportive. "Keep reading, Mama," Tommy whispered. "Someone else is here, someone kind." Carmen looked around the empty room, but she felt it too. A presence that seemed to wrap around both her and her son like an invisible embrace. Meanwhile, in the trauma bay 3 floors above, Sarah's body was fighting for life. Her brain activity had been minimal for over an hour. Dr. Martinez, the attending physician, was preparing to have a difficult conversation with Sarah's family. But at exactly 6:23 p.m., the same moment Carmen felt the mysterious presence in Tommy's room, Sarah's vital signs suddenly strengthened. Her brain activity increased dramatically, her breathing improved. "I don't understand," Dr. Martinez told the nurses. "Her numbers just improved across the board. Get me another scan, now." The brain scan would show something that medical science still can't fully explain. The areas of Sarah's brain associated with empathy, connection, and what some researchers call transcendent awareness were more active than Dr. Martinez had ever seen in any patient, conscious or unconscious. Sarah woke up on Thursday morning, nearly 48 hours after the accident. Her first words were not about her pain or her injuries or even where she was. "There's a little boy," she told the nurse who was checking her IV. "Tommy, he's in this hospital. His mother needs help." The nurse, Linda Thompson, had worked in intensive care for 15 years. She'd heard many patients say strange things upon waking from traumatic injuries. But something about Sarah's urgency made her pause. "What little boy, honey?" "He has leukemia. He's 8 years old. His mother, Carmen, she's been reading him fairy tales from an old book, but she's too sad to finish the stories." Linda felt a chill run down her spine. She did know about Tommy Rodriguez. Word travels fast in hospitals, especially about the difficult cases. The little boy with leukemia whose family had been keeping vigil for weeks. "How could you possibly know about Tommy?" Linda asked gently. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I was there. I don't know how, but I was there. And I think I helped." What Linda discovered next would become hospital legend. She called down to the children's ward and spoke with Tommy's primary nurse, Rebecca.
"Has anything unusual happened with the Rodriguez boy in the last couple of days?" "Actually, yes," Rebecca said, sounding puzzled. "Tuesday evening, around 6:30, his condition suddenly improved. Not just a little, dramatically. His white cell count improved overnight more than we'd seen in months. Dr. Santos is calling it unexpected, but very promising. And the mother? Carmen said something strange. She said she felt like someone was in the room with them Tuesday evening, helping her read to Tommy. She said it felt like a teacher, someone who loved reading to children." Linda's hands were shaking as she hung up the phone. Emotional pause. When Dr. Williams came to examine Sarah later that day, she brought with her a healthy skepticism and a determination to find rational explanations for what everyone was calling a miracle. But Sarah's account was remarkably detailed and consistent. She described Tommy's room accurately, down to the specific fairy tale book, the colour of Carmen's sweater, and even the small crack in the window that only someone who had been in that room could have noticed. "I need to see him," Sarah told Dr. Williams. "I need to know he's okay." "Mrs. Mitchell, you've been through severe trauma. What you're describing could be—" "I know how it sounds," Sarah interrupted gently. "I'm a teacher, Dr. Williams. I'm practical. I grade papers and plan lessons and deal with reality every day. But this was real, more real than anything I've ever experienced."
Music becomes uplifting, inspirational. Tommy Rodriguez went into remission 6 weeks later. His recovery was so complete that Dr. Santos called it one of the most remarkable turnarounds she'd witnessed in 20 years of pediatric oncology. Sarah Mitchell made a full recovery as well, though she would always carry small scars from the accident, physical reminders of the day her life intersected with another family's miracle. But the story doesn't end there. Sarah began volunteering at Portland General's Children's Ward every Tuesday evening, reading stories to young patients. Carmen joined her, and together they started a program called Story Bridges, connecting patients and families who needed hope with volunteers who understood the power of shared stories. Tommy, now 10 years old and healthy, often joins them, reading to younger children with the same gentle patience that Sarah showed him during those mysterious moments when consciousness transcended physical boundaries. Pause for reflection. Dr. Patricia Williams published a paper about Sarah's case in the Journal of Consciousness Studies, titled Non-Local Awareness During Critical Medical Events. While she maintained scientific caution about the inexplicable elements, she concluded, "Some human experiences transcend our current understanding of consciousness and connection." But perhaps the most remarkable part of this story isn't the mystery of how Sarah's awareness traveled to Tommy's room during her own life or death struggle. Perhaps it's what happened afterward. Sarah's near-death experience didn't just save Tommy's life in some mystical way. It created a lasting bridge between two families who had never met, but were connected by something deeper than coincidence. Final pause. Today, Sarah's daughter Emma, now the mother of a healthy 2-year-old, brings her daughter to the Story Bridges sessions. 3 generations of women touched by a miracle that began with one woman's journey toward the light, but somehow curved back to save a child she'd never met. Carmen often says that Sarah didn't just help her finish reading fairy tales to Tommy that night. She helped Carmen believe in happy endings again. And Tommy? He's decided he wants to be a teacher when he grows up, just like Mrs. Mitchell. Music swells gently, then fades. Sometimes, our second chances aren't just about getting another opportunity for ourselves. Sometimes, they're about becoming the opportunity someone else desperately needs. Thank you for joining me for another story that reminds us all we're more connected than we know, and love truly does travel in mysterious ways. This is Second Chance Stories. I'll see you next time with another